Who's ready? Are you ready? I need you to drop a yes in the comments when this premieres. I need fire emojis. I need feral fox emojis. Because why? Because today we're talking about it. We're doing it. We're going there. People pleasing, fawning, my foxes. Yeah, you. I'm talking to you. Yeah, you're tuning in because you're probably somebody who messaged me and said, when are you going to talk about the fawning foxes? Yes, today, fawning foxes. If you want to 10x, 15x, 300x your ability to stop people pleasing. I mean, can you imagine? If you identify as a fox, can you imagine what that would be like? All those times you said, why did I do that? I wish I didn't do that. What would it feel like if you didn't do it? Just imagine literally not doing it. Not, I'm going to practice not doing it and then maybe, no, you just don't do it without effort. It comes naturally. It is your new default behavior. How amazing would that be? That's what we're talking about today. You, through this work, like I did, I mean, if you want what I have, which is freaking a ginormous ball of happy human right now, and have been since I learned all of this, because it's real and it's science. It's in your brain. It's not like, I'm going to feel great, a happy pill, and then I feel crappy tomorrow because, the framework didn't work. No, this is science. It changed my life. This is the work. This is it. This is the work. And it's work. It's simple. It's not necessarily easy. If you're tired of trying to continue to be palatable, right? Just to keep the peace. If you are ready to meet your fox today, we're going to name your fox. We're going to decode her. I'm going to teach from her, and we're going to set her free, because you were not born to be agreeable. You were born to be awake and live and love your life. So are you ready? Let's go.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
I get a lot of comments from you guys that say, I don't want to make comments because the stuff we're talking about is just like so serious, so personal. So I don't want to come out and say I'm struggling with people pleasing. I'm struggling with freezing and fawning and having this like pop off moments of like fighting and then the cycle of guilt. And listen, this is what I want you to hear right now. Are you with me? I need you to hear this with me right now. All of us have all four of these instincts within us. All four. All of us have at least one significantly dominant one. So what does that mean? That means if you and a group of your 4 friends or colleagues or family or whatever, or you're standing, in line at a doctor's office, there's going to be another person right there, probably, who deals with exactly what you're dealing with, exactly what you're frustrated with. Why am I saying this? Because I need you to understand you're not alone. This is a thing that everybody struggles with. I want to say thank you to all of my foxes and all of those that have taken the quiz and have identified your dominant survival instinct archetype. And if you missed it, the last 2 weeks, we talked about the owl, the freeze response. And then last week, we talked about the deer, the flight response. Today, it's the feral fox. My people pleasers. And I'm one of you too. We all have this stuff. It's very important. You ready? I'm going to give you some truth here. It's very important you understand that everyone does this. You're not unique, right? In that special way that you're the only person who can't figure out how to stop doing this stuff. Everybody does it. Everybody has all of these instincts, right? Everybody has a dominant one. And there's only 4. So what does that mean? That means that If you're at dinner with 4 of your friends, there's somebody at the table, most likely, who feels on some level like you do. This is not as complicated as we like to make it in our minds. It's not. It just feels that way. It feels like we're the only ones who can't figure it out. It feels like we're the only ones getting it wrong all the time. It feels like nobody's doing it as terrible as we are sometimes, right? That's your brain telling you a narrative that's not true. It's not true. And you don't have to accept everything your brain offers you. Because why? Who are my thought work people? Thought work. Let's talk about thought work. Put it in the comments. Thought work. Our thoughts are not real. The words in our brains are not real. They're being made up, just like in other people's brains. They're being made up most of the time, right on the spot, and nobody questions them. Do you question your thoughts? When somebody walks by and you go, oh, what an ugly shirt. And then you go, wait, why? Brain, why did I just say such an ugly thing? Why would I say such a thing to another human being in my brain? Now we're like, that's an ugly shirt. And we're like co-signing all the stuff our brain says. You don't have to do that anymore. Why? Because I'm telling you what it is and why you don't have to do it anymore. Because your brain is offering you words, just like when you want to make people happy. Because your brain is telling you all kinds of things, dumping neurotransmitters through your body, making you feel horrible because it thinks that you're in danger. You're not in danger. From Bob from accounting. Larry in logistics cannot attack you in front of HR, especially, right? They can just be jerks at the water cooler. Let them be that way over there, and you will when you manage your brain. Kids often can't fight and they can't run. And anybody who's had any kind of, and it doesn't even have to be a very significant event, right? But if you've had a moment as a child where you are powerless to do something about your own agency to keep you safe, even it's about, emotions like feelings or verbal stuff. Somebody's saying something really ugly to you when you were a kid and, you weren't in a position, especially if they're adults, you can't say stuff, you can't run, you can't fight. And so many people default to freezing and fawning when there's been something from when they were younger and they couldn't fight and they couldn't run, right? So there are so many owls and foxes running around, just waiting to bump into one another and say, hey, do you do that thing? I do that thing too. Is that annoying? Oh my gosh, it's so annoying. And having some camaraderie around it. If, by the way, you're interested in any kind of community, I am putting some stuff on the website. You would go to charliehornesscoaching.com/groups/ and then whatever your archetype is. So it'd be like groups/fox. groups/deer. So when you take the quiz and you get your cheat sheet and you feel like, yeah, that kind of, I relate to that now. Again, watch last week, Cone of Uncertainty, right? Like there's so much about moving and living beings and systems and things that, it's always moving and changing depending on different levels of converging forces. But there should be stuff on there that make you say, yeah, I get that. Okay, I get that more than the other ones. I do that more, but we do all of them. So finding a community around your survival instinct type, because it does feel like a disposition, even if it's not. It does feel like stuff that's impossible to get over. The reason it looks like everybody else does it better than you is because you're comparing yourself, for example, to a lion who's going to pop off in somebody's face, because that's what their brain does when somebody says something that makes them feel like they're in some kind of threat, danger situation. You see that, just that, and you say, wow, why can't I say that stuff in the moment? But what you don't see is when lions go home and they live in immense guilt, often for not being able to control their mouths. I remember my dad raising me my whole life, telling me, think before you speak. I have some lion in me. It never comes out when I need it to. The owl is always there when I want to say the thing. And then when I don't want to say the thing, the lion loves to show up. So you're comparing yourself to an entirely different survival instinct archetype who has its own issues. And when they're watching you as the fox, they're thinking, wow, why can't I get along with people like that person does? They don't know that you're saying yes to something you'd rather say no to. They don't know that you're not happy about whatever. They don't know that you wish you would have set a boundary when you didn't. They don't see that. They see you and another human looking like you're getting along. That's all they see. And they're like, I can't get along with anybody. I yell at everybody and then I go home and I ruminate and I feel guilty about it, right? Or the deer who might identify you as having a calm presence, right? Which is what you're negotiating when you're people pleasing. It's sort of like pretending calm, peace, but they don't know that. They just see you doing it and they say, I can't just sit and be calm. I have to be busy all the time because otherwise if I stop, I might die. That's what their brain's telling them. They don't see you the way you see you. You don't see them the way they see themselves. So who you think is being this like super strong, says what's on their mind, wish I could say it in the moment, they don't think that about themselves, rarely. So what you need to understand is you're not alone. It just feels like you're alone. If you want to meet more of your archetype, I'm thinking about maybe, some little community circles because I've had so many people reach out. If it's a good fit, people have to show up. They have to want to be there. They have to, practice this stuff, getting along, not like taking over or whatever. It's not for everybody. So you have to be a good fit. You have to be willing to do the work. So if you're interested in being a part of one of these 4 circles, the owl, the fox, the deer, and the lion, then like I said, charliehornisscoaching.com/groups/ and then the archetype that you're interested in, fox, deer, lion, or owl. So we're getting into it. That was a long segue into saying we're going to get into people pleasing, and I need some fire in the comments because so many of you are so worried about this instinct. And I get it. I've been there. I'm not there anymore, which is possible, just so you know. But I've been there and I've done that. So suffice to say, the DMs, the late night emails, the voice notes, the telegrams, whatever, all saying, when are we going to talk about Fox? Well, it's time. So today we are jumping into the fawn response, the survival pattern that says, smile, nod, apologize first. Don't question why you're doing that. Say yes. Be a yes person, right? Now, it's one thing to decide, I'm going to go out there and be positive and I'm going to say yes and see where the world takes me. That's a fun thing to do. That is like living in an improv world. Back from my acting days, I was horrible at improv, by the way. You always say yes. Always. Somebody offers you something in a bit and you always take it and say yes, and you see where it goes. You don't have to do that in the real world. Then you don't have to apologize for not wanting to say yes. If you're going out there to give it like that experimental try of where you end up the rest of the day, I think Jim Carrey does a movie about that, or somebody does. Yeah, but that's entirely different. That's intentional. That's like a purpose-driven exercise. Just saying yes in your life, appeasing, softening yourself, being afraid to challenge, to push back, to say no, to just say, I don't want to do that. And I'm okay if you don't like that. I don't want to do that. Translating yourself. This doesn't come from some kind of defect. This is because at some point you were punished for your presence. At some point, you pushing back became dangerous to your brain. It may not have been physically or emotionally dangerous, like, for real, but there are things that kind of trigger our brains to believe that we're in some sense of danger, but no more. All right. So today we're going to name your fox. We're going to decode your fox. We're going to teach from the place of your fox, and we're going to let her free, because you're not born to be agreeable. You're born to be awake. You're born to decide for yourself what is and is not acceptable to you. That's what happens when we stop people pleasing. That's why I'm saying this work isn't for everybody, because you have to show up and you have to get ready for discomfort, because that's step one after awareness. You're going to live into so much discomfort of doing new stuff, and your brain's going to hate your guts. And it's only when you get through that phase, and that's the one everybody quits. Everybody quits there. They say, I can't do it. I give up. Well, of course you can't do it. You've never done it before. You have to practice. What are we going to do? We're going to build the evidence against, right? That's the first thing. And then your brain says, oh, I can't do it. Look at all the evidence against. I can't do, a perfect pot in ceramics class or pottery or whatever. Anecdote. I'm sure my mother's listening. She and my father are big into pottery, and they have a really cool art store and sell amazing stuff. I have still one of the very first coffee cups that my mother made, and she knows. I'm not telling you anything she doesn't say about herself. Every time she comes to my house and sees the thing, she knows it's the most hideous coffee cup in the entire world. And we love drinking out of it. We do it all the time. And now I have some from the last several years after much practice, much effort. It's something she's really leaned into because she wants to get better, right? She's put in the work. She's done the practice. She's made the ugly as sin coffee cups. And those things, you know what they do? They bring us joy. We love them, like legit love them. We enjoy having those in our home and using them because they're meaningful to us. They're part of these stages of life and learning and watching her grow. And now she makes beautiful stuff. DM me if you need their Etsy store, by the way. Beautiful stuff. But she had to make ugly coffee cups first. And then she felt bad about it because they were ugly as sin. And she wants to make art. And she's an artist. And now, after putting in the work, showing up every day to that, that throw in clay and pottery wheel and I don't know what, kiln, it's not my thing. So I'm sure I'm saying it all wrong and I'm going to get an earful later. But you build evidence against before you can build evidence for. And you cannot let your brain convince you that you're bad at something when you've never done it before. Truly, like leaned in. My kids do it all the time to me. One of the problems with being smart is that often, and I know I'm talking to you, so, I got you right here. Things come easy to you. And I know that the majority, if not all of my listeners, almost 500,000 of you are smart. You are. Most people struggling with all of this stuff, they're smart, and things come easy to smart people. Here's the problem with being smart. And we talked about brilliance last week. This is a caveat to that. This kind of stuff, the stuff you're not good at, the stuff that keeps you up at night, the stuff that you wish you could be better at, that's the stuff that takes work. And you're not used to having to really put too much into stuff that you're not like excited about, right? And not getting that immediate evidence that we're good at it for smart people is frustrating because so often we're just good at what we do. I'm good at it. That's it. My kids do it with sports. They're like, I can't do this. We had a very interesting experience when they were little because we lived in an urban area before we moved to where we are now. And all their sports during COVID was shut down. And the two of them had just gotten so excited about baseball. So excited. One was on T-ball, one was getting started with coach pitch, and everything shut down. And my kids did not get 2 years of formidable years of baseball. And today they're still behind because the area we're at now it's much more rural here. And so there was just a lot more outdoor airy space, and they just made a decision to continue with sports. And so a lot of the peers of my kids are so far ahead of them in baseball. And they get really upset about it. And it's like, okay, I mean, if you really want to lean into this and you want to do the work, then we can talk about what doing stuff to get better. Like, okay, are we going to make a commitment? We'll invest in a pitching coach. We'll invest in a batting coach. We'll invest in going every week to the batting cages. And my husband played baseball all the way through high school. So he really helps them. But gosh, just sitting there watching them, it's like when I coach so many of my foxes, they get so frustrated because they can't do it right away. And the truth bomb is that you're not going to do it right for a while. You're going to screw it up. You're not going to set the boundary. You're not going to say the thing in the moment. You're not going to not say the thing in the moment for a while because you have to rewire your brain, just like my kids have to learn all of the technique of actually hitting a baseball. What's really fun is when I go out there and try to play baseball with them. And I played sports, but not like that big of a deal. I'm not very good at it. I'm good at what I do, but man, they get mad when I have to pitch for them because I have no training in pitching. None. I could learn, sure, if I want to invest in a coach and put in the time and do the work, do the homework, they tell me what to do. I go home and I practice and I do the thing and go back and see them. And consistency, that's what this work takes. And I'm not about to do that. I'm trying to be a good mom so I could be out there playing with my kids, but I don't see myself pitching anytime soon where they're going to be excited about playing baseball with mom. I mean, they do love it and we have fun, but I don't typically get asked to pitch much anymore, which is fine. It takes work. And you were born to be awake, not to be agreeable. You were born to determine for yourself what is and is not acceptable to you, right? That's autonomy. I have trained myself over time in the investment, right? Our time, our treasure, and our energy. Scripture says where we put our treasure, there our heart will follow. So that's why we do things like invest in baseball coaches for our kids. And, when you put a little skin in the game, you show up, you do the work. You don't want to lose the investment, right? That's why, coaches like me don't give a lot of stuff away for free. I give you what you need, but I need you to show up if I'm going to take time out of my day to coach you because I want you to succeed. And gosh, it's going to break my heart if you're not doing the work. That's why I only allow people to apply for coaching with me, because if it's not a good fit, if you're not going to work, you're going to break my heart. Because I want you to succeed. I want you to do the work. And I can only work with people that are willing to do that, really willing to put skin in the game, show up, make the investment of time, of treasure, and of energy. If we don't do that, we're not going to do the work. And all of this is to say to my foxes, it's entirely counterintuitive, people pleasing. It's entirely against nature. That's why it feels so terrible. Where are my foxes? There you are. I see you. Drop a yes in the comments when this premieres, because I need to see those feral fox emojis. I need to see those fire emojis. I need to see it. I need you foxes to engage. And listen, I know you've all told me, believe me, I read every single DM. I read every single late night email. I read all of it. I know you don't want to engage in public, in like comments and chats and this, that, and the other, because the stuff we're talking about is difficult. Nobody wants to go online and leave a thumbnail footprint, whatever, of I'm a big people pleaser and everything sucks. I get it. You need to understand you're not alone. And that's why we're doing this stuff. That's why we're talking about this stuff. And I cannot tell you, I know if you were someone who messaged me about when am I going to talk about people pleasing and foxes, because I'm getting so much energy around that, I get it. These are like DM conversations, right? These are like, private high ticket coaching package conversations. But I need you all to know that you're all out there with each other. I need you to see that, especially my foxes, because you're so worried, understandably, what other people think about you. And it's not for any reason that most people would think. But I know I have a lot of you gathered today, and I'm really excited about that. So many people judge others when they identify them as people pleasers, as fake, as phony, as pretending, as, telling people what they want to hear, and then just, doing that whole, what is it, the shapeshifter thing, right? No, your fox is not fake. Your fox, you want to know what she is? She's strategic. Your fox is strategic. Your fox grew up learning how to read a room before she could even read herself, right? She knows how to translate silence. If anybody can read tone in email, it's a fox, a dominant fox. If anybody can identify a microaggression coming a mile away, it's a fox. But your fox overthinks everything. And it's not because of insecurity. It's not because of like low self-esteem or low self-confidence. It's because she's trying to predict the threat that she feels in real time. So often when you start the accommodating, it's because your survival instinct archetype, your fox, has already identified a threat. Something, somewhere, in whatever situation it is that you're finding yourself people-pleasing, your fox is identified as a threat, and she's just trying to save you from it. And her adaptive learning was to appease the situation, kind of, bring down the pressure and try not to get eaten. It's not anxiety, it's adaptation. But your fox is exhausted. She smiles to keep things smoothed over. She over delivers to keep everybody happy. Unhappy people are so annoying to have to be around all the time. When it's like at your job or in your family, extended family, having to sit at a dinner table with somebody who's just constantly, complaining about everything. And it's hard to do that because somewhere along the way, she learned that unhappy people were a threat. That's what your fox believes. When somebody's unhappy with you, with the room, with the air, with you breathing, you're in a situation that is threatening. That's all that's happening. And your fox has identified it well before you saw it coming because it's instinct. She feels it. She sees it a mile away. She knows who the asshole in the room is. You can convince your thinking brain all day long that, well, this, that. I mean, we make so many excuses as foxes, right? Ask yourself, feel free to start a conversation in the comments. But when you're people pleasing, when you're saying yes to people that you don't want to say yes to, are they people that remotely intimidate? Are they people you're worried aren't going to like you or going to have some kind of judgment against you? Are they judgmental people? Are they judgy? See, our fox sees folks that are incapable of allowing us to set a boundary, of accepting the boundary. We can set it all day long. They just don't accept it. And our fox somewhere learned that when people get mad about us setting boundaries, having autonomy, taking up our space, saying what's on our mind, telling people to sip it, right? A little chitty chitty chat chat kind of thing. What is that? Kung Fu Panda? Think about it honestly. Is that person in some way to you, reasonably or not, doesn't matter. And look, you don't need me to co-sign what you think is or is not threatening. If somebody intimidates you, let's not talk about why. Let's not get into the psychotherapy around that for a minute. Let's talk about how you feel when you're around that person, the person that you have to argue your boundary with, right? The person you have to convince that your no is okay because they won't accept it. There's something there that's uncomfortable. Get somebody in your mind right now, my fox. Identify who it is. You know who it is. You know who I'm talking about. Get them in your mind and imagine doing the thing that you get frustrated you don't do. Is it say no? Is it set a boundary? Is it say, not right now? Is it, no, I'm not going to show up to one more whatever and do the whatever. I mean, fill in the blank. What's the thing? You know who I'm talking about. You probably have a list of them. And when they come around, when they call, when you have to see them in the holidays, when you have to work with them, I mean, relationships, your health, your career, there are people in all of this stuff. You know how you feel when they come around. You know when you gear up, right? You know when you practice the thing at night you wish you could say. And then in your brain, I'm going to say it. And then all of a sudden, you get sideswiped by the person and you can't even remember what the thing was you were going to say in the first place. It's not even that you can't say it. You can't remember the words. That's because your fox sabotaged you right then. Why? Because your fox is like, oh no, baby, you're not making that person mad. You're not going to not accommodate that person because when they get mad or whatever, and they may not even be that, Shakespearean villainous, archetype that I've got some art out there right now. I'm trying to, the thing about so much of what we're talking about is we don't have words for it. We just know how we feel. And so I've been working on like a graphic suite of things that might visually express these feelings so that you, my fox, might see one of these, graphics and then say, well, shit, that's exactly how I feel. I don't have words for that, but I feel that. Some of my lovely evil villains are my, Bob from accounting and Larry in logistics. I'm imagining them as these sort of, Falstaff or Iago, Shakespearean, evil villains, but also buffoons. And they just buffoon around life because they obviously don't have any skin in the game if they're going to be, making you feel how you feel. Now, we can control all of that. That's how we manage our brains. But before we control all of that, we have, Falstaff / Iago / buffoon Bob and Larry over there with their 2 p.m. secret shadow campaign meetings around the urinal about how you're a bitch and shouldn't have got the promotion that they wanted or whatever it is, right? They don't even have to say anything to you. Your fox feels that. She feels it. Your fox is like the greatest empath of empaths. It's a superpower. What you're feeling when you want to please somebody is that person is the last person you should try to please. Why? Because they're never going to be pleased. The people you please that you're so frustrated you're pleasing are the people that won't ever be pleased with you. And if they are for a hot minute, the goalpost will move. I promise you that. There's no point trying. But here's the thing. I can tell you that all day long. But until you know how to not care about that person being pleased, I could tell you that all day long. And you're not going to be able to do anything about it because you don't know how to fix it. And you can. This is not fixing you. You don't need fixing. You just need to understand what's happening and then learn to counter it. And you also have to understand, because the reason we can't accept everything our brain offers to us is because our brain is telling us the counterintuitive stuff that's actually not real is real. And we have to learn to manage that in order for you to function in a normal social situation where you're not going to get clobbered for just opening your mouth. And that's why this has evolved, because, predators in the wild are not passive aggressive. We know where they stand. We know if they're hungry and want lunch and have their eyeballs on us, right? That's an interesting thing, because when you see the prey and the predator, and if the predator has eaten, the prey and the predator hang out fine because the prey know they're not on the menu. Their instinct tells them they're safe. It's bizarre. Now, I don't know. That's probably not with every animal, but there's really cool nature shows about stuff like that where they're just kind of like chilling together. It doesn't last long, I'm sure, but that's clear, right? I know if a predator has me on the menu for lunch, and then my survival instinct will do its job, right? I will fight it off. I will run away as fast as possible. or I will stop and hope that it keeps walking and doesn't see me as tasty as the next guy, right? Those are all clear danger, clear threat gone, or we're lunch. Either way, clear ending, you know. The fawning has evolved because of things like passive aggressiveness, because of dysfunction, because we're dealing with people that are emotionally dysregulated, that are not telling us what we know to be true. I know you don't like me. I don't care that you don't like me. Just don't freaking smile in my face and then talk behind my back. Right. And then they're like, no, we really like you. And then you topple over into cognitive dissonance because you don't understand why you feel like somebody doesn't like you. And they're telling you to your face that they do. But the truth is that they don't. And it's okay for people not to like you. You don't like everybody. But it's nice to know, right? Like if somebody's bullshitting you around, you don't want to convey your deepest, darkest secrets to them. You need to know. And things have gotten very convoluted. And that's how the evolution of fawning has come about, because it is a nuanced way of protecting yourself from dysfunction that is not like normal in the animal kingdom, where these other three survival instincts we see all the time. Very clear. Frustrating. I mean, I'm an owl. It's frustrating as hell that when I feel a threat, I cannot say the thing. Right. And then I watch the lion over there say the thing. And then I'm like, why can't I say the thing? And then I feel terrible about myself. What's wrong with me? This is how our brains have evolved. Our survival mechanism has evolved to protect us from extremely nuanced danger, microaggressions, passive aggressive comments, people that are totally emotionally dysregulated, and their responses to you are disproportionate to the situation, right? And speaking of microaggressions, I'm totally going to circle back to that because this is a two-parter. Yeah, I know. It's a two-parter. Yay. Yeah. So part 2, you're going to have to come back and watch because we're going to talk about exactly what microaggressions are and how they affect your fox. All right, let's keep going. I talk about it all the time. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're not allowed to get yelled at for it, like in a inappropriate way. You're not allowed to have to put up with snarky comments that make you feel stupid from people that believe the thoughts that their brain is generating in the moment to tell you that you're stupid. That's a smart person right there. That's a mature, emotional adult, right? No, that's how you start to learn to do this stuff. Because that person that makes you feel that way is the absolute source of the threat that your fox is picking up on immediately. They're also emotional children, which is what she's picking up on too. And she just wants to like not have a fight. You don't have to fight with stupid people who believe the things that their brain tells them in an instant that's made up about whatever. And you don't need those people to think good things about you either, because those thoughts are probably just as bullshit as the unkind thoughts, because we're dealing with emotional immaturity. We're dealing with people living in survival mechanism, not in their thinking brain. People that don't understand what kindness is, people that think they can just say whatever they want with no repercussion because no one's ever held them accountable. There's so much dysfunction, and all your fox is doing is protecting you from it. She's saying, don't even bother. Don't even go there. Say yes, say this, say that, get out of there. But the problem is that then we start to overfunction, right? We say yes to too many things. We're showing up to too many things. And that's how a fox ultimately burns out. If we go back to that storm metaphor, if we're dealing with significant dysfunction levels, if we're dealing with significant social pressures like a gender bias gap, right? If we're speaking specifically to women, and again, caveat, I speak to women because that's my experience, but men can use all of this information too in different ways. So you're welcome to keep tracking me here. Just shift in and out whatever pronoun you need to make sense for you. But for women, and men have different external pressures, right? That create this perfect storm. If you have enough of these converging forces at the right level and depth and whatever speed. So when I said earlier, because for your fox, conflict is uncomfortable. The truth is, you don't have to do anything because you're not around a safe person. At least your instinct doesn't believe that you are. And I joke, they're wrong 99% of the time, but that's not actually true. They're always right. It's just that they convince themselves that the outcome is death. Again, Bob and Larry being jerks is not going to kill you. Your fox thinks it is. So that's the problem. Your survival mechanism that hijacks you, that the amygdala hijack, is doing it because it's equating Bob from accounting and Larry in logistics with a cougar and a grizzly coming right at you and that you're dead meat. And, it also has evolved to believe that it also knows it's human, so it can be reasoned with rather than, cougars and grizzlies that cannot be reasoned with. So it's the reasoning response to unreasonable people. And it's because your fox thinks if you can't reason with them, you're dead, right? That's the only reason that's happening. Nothing wrong with you. You're not unable to do things other people can't do. You're never gonna this, that. I mean, listen, the reason you're never going to do it is because your fox won't let you, because your fox knows there's no safety near. And that's it. Just like the owl does, shuts me down. I learned later in life that the owl instinct for me was such a blessing because, and many of you have heard some of my story of the sort of, reason I do all of this is my own pretty traumatic, awful career in a field that was not kind and is not kind to women. And there were some situations that now that I look back on, had I done the thing that I ruminated and beat myself up over, I should have said this, I could have said that. Had I actually done the thing my owl kept me from doing, it would have been so much worse. My owl saved me. And now I'm so grateful for that. I have a whole different relationship with my owl now. I snuggle my owl. I love my owl. I love when my owl starts hooting and hollering and letting me know there's danger. And then I kickstart my prefrontal cortex and I get to decide the level of danger it is. Now, she's not wrong, but rarely is it death. And so often I can say, hey, thank you for the warning. Okay, I know that I'm not in a safe space. Our instincts are total empaths, all of them, especially the fox. But all of them are. They feel it, they see it, they identify it well before your thinking brain ever could even know. And that's why you're saying yes before you've even caught up with what's happening. That's why you're apologizing as fast as possible, because she's dealing with the nuances of more evolved threats. And that's what the fawning response is. It's just an evolved version of trying to keep ourselves alive. But we don't live in those times anymore, and we're not in physical bodily danger. We're just dealing with jerks, and it doesn't feel that way. And this is why it doesn't feel that way. This is why you don't feel like you have any control over situations, because you don't. Not until you learn to manage your brain. Managing your instinct. That's it. That's what you're doing. You're managing your fox. You got this beautiful fox who likes to mess everything up all the time. Your fox's response, it's trauma informed. It's a nervous system reaction to social threat, evolved social threat. They may not be coming at you with a machete like back in the old days, right? Like, everybody grew up in a tribe and other tribes were dangerous just because you didn't grow up with them. You don't know them, and they might, who knows? You're reacting to a social threat of somebody who is not part of your, ancient tribe, to use that word in its proper context. When your brain senses that belonging is at risk, that sense of the social contract that really doesn't much exist anymore. Let's be real. When we're talking about your brain sensing belonging and wanting belonging and seeking belonging and a lack of discomfort, it's because you were supposed to have been raised in a community your entire life, the same community, the same group, right? No warring tribes allowed. Like, this is your group. You stay with the group. You mature into doing the job that helps keep everybody safe. and you know them all. And if you have a Bob and a Larry, well, you grew up with them. It's very different than a dude in a cubicle you've known for 6 months who's a snarky jerk. Often it is because you're a woman, especially if you have any kind of authority over them. And it doesn't even have to be conscious. Like I'm not saying that they're sexist or any of that. It's just belief systems, ways people were raised, systemic ways of making meaning and value. And so that is not belonging. That is not your group. And so in today's day and age, we have to create our own groups where we feel like we belong, our people. Again, charliehorniscoaching.com/groups/choose your animal that the quiz tells you are. And let me know if you're looking for that kind of community where you belong, where people get you, right? You may not have grown up with them, but at least they understand because they struggle with the same things. And when your brain senses this risk of belonging and fighting and fleeing is not going to work, and freezing into the background isn't going to work because they're targeting you, right? Microaggressions don't just, whiz by. They're at you. They're coming at you, especially for women, because if people actually have a problem with our gender and just breathing, and like I said, you get a promotion over somebody and they get resentful about it, they're coming for you, because this is the whole point of the hurricane metaphor, is that you have no control over things outside of you, just like you cannot stop a coming hurricane barreling straight at you while you're rooted to the shore by socialization and can't get away. You can't reason with it, people please it. You can't often run away if you're trapped there, if you've been caged in by social pressures. You can yell into a hurricane all day long and try to fight it. You have no control over external forces. Because when people are coming at you with their grievances or their whatever, you can't stop that with a mindset reset. Why? Because your mindset has nothing to do with what other people do, and nor can you change it. If they're coming for you, they're coming for you, and your mindset is not going to stop them. That is how your fox evolved as humans got more dysfunctional and less communal, because the less we know somebody, the more awful we can be. And that's why it seems like life is getting worse right now. I don't do a whole lot on actual social media. I prefer long form content places like YouTube and blogging and audio podcasts. That is where people that are interested in learning, interested in investing in themselves to, get better, so we can watch people get better, we can help people get better. I don't know if I would be terribly successful doing like dancing on TikTok or whatever that my kids want me to do. I'm not doing it. I'm a sadly, I guess, serious person as far as like, I want to spend time on big questions and help people and help you not have that like Cat 5 burnout event that I did, because it's terrible. And I learned how not to do it. I want to teach you that so you don't have to do it. I want to give back to the world as people gave to me, who helped me get through it. And hopefully they got me through it faster than they did, and I will get you through it faster. This is preventative stuff, but we don't live in that world anymore. We don't. And so our instincts really are no longer useful in that department if we can manage them. And when we know that fighting and fleeing and blending into the furniture isn't going to work because they're coming at us, barreling at us like a hurricane in the Gulf, and there's nothing that we're going to do except get out of the way. It's the only thing we can do. Now, I teach 2 ways to do that. I teach the aerial view, and then I have something I call outrun, which is get the hell out of there strategically, and that's a step-by-step thing too. Aerial is like 30,000 feet up and see the system down for what it is, what's happening, and remove yourself emotionally so that you are not the emotionally dysregulated person in the situation. Because like my coach teaches, it only takes one healthy person in a dysfunctional relationship to make it healthy. And the person who's not being the healthy person, maybe their opinion shouldn't matter to the healthy person. As in, you don't need them to co-sign whether or not your boundary is okay. You don't need them to agree with you when you say no. You don't need to argue with them why you believe the thing you believe and are going to do the thing you're going to do. And that what they want you to do is more important than what you need to do. Like, no, none of that. What you're doing is you're adapting. You're making yourself useful. You're morphing into what they want. Why? Because social safety is 100% biological. And again, there's nothing wrong with you. You get to now meet your fox, welcome your fox, snuggle your fox, thank your fox, pay attention to your fox, because your fox is the greatest empath that ever lived. If you can dial into that, if you can learn that, it's going to be the greatest superpower you'll ever have in your life. What changes is your relationship with your fox. Instead of seeing her as the enemy who can't ever seem to let you get anything right because you're comparing yourself to a lion who's also miserable over there and needs to get with their lion quick and, make some peace, realize you've just inherited a new pet. Instead of doing that, you need to see this for what it is. And this is what it is. I need more fire in the comments. Your instinct is your superpower. 1,000%. 1,000%. This is how you 10x, you 15x, you 20x the thing you're struggling with, right? As far as addressing it. You feel like you're not confident. Well, this is how we 10x you getting successful at being confident. This is how we do it. This is the work. Don't listen to nonsense words. You're not too much. All right, Fox, we have a whole nother episode coming up to start unpacking how to start dealing with the things that frustrate you about your survival instinct. But in the meantime, here's my final thoughts. Look, you were never too much or whatever. I never like that word, too much, especially when it's used against women. It's really awful. So just know if somebody ever says you're too much, that is definitely a microaggression. And again, we're going to get into that next week. You're just reading the room before anything else. You're just gifted at that. You're taking away everybody's discomfort so that they don't have to suffer from that, but you kind of own it instead. And you become fluent in other people's expectations and you forget what your language is. But listen, I want you to hear me. Your fox is not failing you. No, she's the reason that you're still standing after what you've been through. That's what it is. She's the reason. She's watched the others freeze, fight, flee, and she's calculated. She's adapted. She's masked. She made herself palatable because she didn't want you to get punished. And now she's exhausted from all the smiling, from the accommodating, the pretending, but she's not broken. No, you don't get to think something's wrong with you. You don't get to go there. Your fox is not broken. You're not broken. You're never gonna be. She's brilliant. You're brilliant, but you're misunderstood by people that are entirely emotionally immature. And that's a disconnect. And it doesn't make sense. And we're going to have to teach you how to address that. But here's what no one has told you. You don't need to exile her to evolve. You don't need to fix her, and you definitely don't need to fix you. But what you do need to do is be aware of what she's been trying to do this whole time. You need to hold her like that new puppy that she really is to you. You need to thank her for taking care of you up until now. You need to let her curl up beside you, not to protect you from danger anymore, but to remind you how smart you were for surviving it. You see, this is the shift. This is the storm's end. This is how we get up above it. And no matter how destructive it gets, you have removed yourself emotionally. This is the storm's end. You don't need to keep translating yourself into someone else's safety plan. You don't need to skirt to avoid the lightning and get yourself small and unnoticed. You don't need to just be still. You don't need to say yes all the time, because the truth is in your own instinct. And with your fox beside you, head high, tail curled, gorgeous, safe now, and the mask, nah, that was never armor. It was a cage. And you don't have to wear it anymore. You're not fawning, you're flying, you're up in the aerial view. And this time, you're not asking for permission, are you? No, you're not. All right. Next week, we're doing part 2 of the Fox Fawn episode, because so many of you had so many cool questions and thoughts. And I really did give some, time to this specifically. So there's questions that I will be answering from a few of you that you sent in at the end of next episode. If you ever have questions about an episode or something you want me to address, I read all of them. And if there's anything I can address during an episode, I definitely will. You can submit those to charliehornetscoaching.com/ask, and I will get your questions. And believe me, I read every single one, even if I don't address it on an episode. So that's where we're going next week. All right. And remember, you are not too sensitive, too much, too emotional, too, I don't know what all the 2 words are. You're not imagining any of that. You're just finally seeing everything for what it is. That's the first step, That's the white rabbit in the Matrix, right? Take that first step, just show up, go do the one thing, and then everything else unfolds. Because the mask didn't protect you. It only muted your brilliance. But now you've got the signal, you've got the science, and you've got a storm map they never wanted you to see. So when the pushback comes, and it will, because emotional children don't like people that don't play with them, when the system pushes your presence and dares you to hide again, you hold instead. You hold your brilliance, you hold your boundaries, you hold your fire, and manage your brain like your life depends on it, because sometimes it does. And this time, you've got the radar. So now we just need to get you up in that aerial view, and we will talk about that next week. All right, friends, I'll see you then. Take care.